Welcome back to the DIY Dad, the doer of things. Today we are going to build a mobile workbench. I've got a stationary workbench that works just fine, but sometimes I wish I had a little more ability to move it around. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so our workbench is going to be 24 inches by 48 inches. And this is a piece of plywood we're going to use for the top. It's actually 23 3/4 by 48 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is build our frame. What we're going to do, I want to have a 1-inch overhang all the way around the table. So we're going to make our lengthwise supports 46 inches, and then once you add on the thickness of the end of those, that'll make our shorter depth braces 18 1/4 inches long. Okay, once we've cut our boards to length, we're gonna construct the frame, and there'll be two of these, one on the top, one on the bottom. And what I've done is I've added an extra 18 1/4 inch support beam in the middle of the workbench, and I've drilled some pilot holes here, and I'm using 2 1/2 inch deck screws. Okay, once we've got our frames built, the next thing we're going to do is cut the legs for the table. I want my table to be 36 inches from the floor to the top, but as I mentioned, this is going to be a rolling bench, and so I've got these casters. These casters take off 3 3/4 inches. So to get to the right height, what we're going to do is cut our legs to 32 1/4 inches. And for my nieces and nephews, Lucas, Andrew, Ella, and Cecile West watching at home, this is why math is important. All right, I've cut the legs to the table, and what you can see here is I've also added a 4 1/4 inch block to the bottom of each leg, and I'll show you why we're doing that in a minute. But I also took the opportunity to sand the rough spots where I've cut, just to make sure we don't get any splinters or anything like that. The next thing we're going to do before I put the legs on is I'm going to put the top of the bench together, because I want to make sure that the top of the bench is flush. And one thing I'm going to do is I've got this little tool that allows you to drill pocket holes so that you can screw the top in from underneath as opposed to screwing it from the top down. And as you can see here, we'll be able to drill right through there up into the top. Okay, once we've drilled our pocket holes, I've put the frame on the table upside down, and as I said, I've got a 1-inch overhang on each side. And what we'll do is put the pocket screws in the pockets and tighten them up. And what that does is, you can see we've got the top here ready to go, and there's no screws coming through the top. Next, I'm going to put the legs on, and so what I'm going to do is, and this is the bottom frame obviously, I'm going to use a spare piece of 2x4 to keep the legs level. And you want to make sure that you get this good and flush with the frame. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're going to make the shelf for the bottom of our workbench. And so what I've done is I've measured it. It's 46 inches long, 21¼ inches wide. So I've taken a 1/2 inch piece of plywood and I've measured it out. And what we're going to do is take a skill saw and trim the edges and cut out those notches where you see the X's. What you really need for this project is a table saw. I don't have a table saw, so I'm going to use as my skill saw, but it's really hard to sometimes to cut long straight lines with a skill saw. But I bought this thingamajig called an AccuCut, and it's really just a guide that helps you cut straight lines with a skill saw. Okay, once we've notched out our bottom shelf, we're just going to lay it in place and fasten it with some screws. Now, with the table upside down, we're going to put the top on the ground and then fit the legs into the top and then secure them with some screws. Okay, with the table still upside down, I told you that I would explain later why we put these extra 2x4 blocks on the bottom of the legs. The reason for that is that we're going to install these casters on the bottom of the workbench, and the width of the caster fixture is wider than a 2x4. So we're going to put 2 locking casters on this end and 2 free casters on the other end. Here's the finished product. A workbench that you can easily move around your garage or workshop. That's all there is to it. Be sure to smash that like button. We'll see you next time.